when we were working last on this page about the moon, we had created a list or two. Here's one. We made it in the aside of related sites related to the moon or astronomy, and we had worked with creating these external links that open in a new tab. So for this first thing that I want to do on the next step here is let's create a list that has another list nested within it. So let's say within navigation, first of all, I want to just collapse some of these other things that we're not going to be working with. So I'm not going to be working with the header, not going to be working with the head, and at the moment we won't be working with the article or the aside or the footer. That just clears things up. Okay, let's create a list. Let's go unordered list again. UL, and we'll create a list item. And instead of actually typing these out, what I did was I typed it out ahead of time just to save us a little bit of time. So I'm going to copy and paste. There we go. So this is what it would look like. You'd have your list items. So, you type this first one out, copy it, then paste it as many times as you need to, and then just change the information, the content information inside. For each of these would each be a page or a section within your website. So this is navigation, meaning that these lists, we'd turn them all into relative links that go to other parts of our site. Then instead of a list item where a contact is, I'd probably want to actually out-dent this a little bit. Is that the opposite of indent, is out-dent? And I wonder if that's when people take their false teeth out at night. That's called out-dentures. Just wondering. Okay, so you have a list like that. So you have a list nested within another list. And it isn't within a list item, it's just a list on its own here. Let's save that, see what that looks like. Go to a preview, check it out in Chromie. Hanging with my Chromies. And it does this. So you have the black bullet points, and then you have the hollow bullet points where you have your embedded list or nested list. And then we can turn those into links. And with CSS, you could actually turn that into a drop down, which is kind of cool too, so that when you hover over contact, this nested list will appear. And we can get to that later if we want to. The next thing that we want to try is making a table. And for that, let's go to I'm going to collapse the navigation, go to the article. And why do we need to know about the moon? And maybe within this section here, let's create a table. And the element is just called table. Nested within that table, we have table. Like if I want the top row of the table to be bold, I could call this a table head. So it would be TH. And within this row, this table head row, I need to call this table row, TR. And then within the table row, so think of a row going across the top of a table, I need to make the cells. And the cells can either be TD, table data, or TH, table head. And there are other ones if you want to look it up. But you can go TH, we'll make this bold, and what would go in our first column heading. So let's maybe call this craters. And then I can copy that, and then I just go to the next line and paste it, and instead of craters, I could call this Maria, or it's mares, whatever the plural of mares is, which is the Latin name for sea. So all the seas on the moon. And then we have TH, I'll have to correct that if I got it wrong in a second here. And then TH, a third column, will be mountains. There are mountains on the moon. Wouldn't it be fun to go mountain climbing on the moon? Okay. And then what I want to do is form the next row. So say this is our row, that's the head of the table, and then I copy that, Command C, Control C, Windows, and then Control V, Windows, Command V for Mac to paste it, and then underneath the craters heading, what do I want the first cell to be here? And maybe it would be the name of a crater. And then for the second cell here, and instead of a heading, I'm going to change this to TD, table data. And I'll change this one to table data. And I'll change this to table data. So it just looks like a regular cell rather than bold like the head. And for this second cell right here, I would decide, okay, what kind of ocean do I want to put in there? What kind of sea? And put that in there. And then for mountains, under mountains, I'd figure out what is the first mountain I want to put in there. And I've already, kind of like the cooking shows where they have the food pre-made for you, I've already made a table. It's pre-baked. I just gotta go over there and replace what we did with, voila, look at all this cooking that I miraculously did. I have to change a little bit of the formatting. There we go. So we have a table, and interestingly enough, it didn't quite paste the way I wanted it to. There we go. Here's our table. All this stuff that's nested within the table, I want to indent that. So I should be able to go to a tool and indent that. Or what happens if I just hit tab? Oh, look at that. I just hit tab and it all indented for me. So these are all nested within the table. This one should be a little nested. Get rid of some of this other clutter. And let's take a look at what we have. So within the section, I have the section, remember, just an invisible container. I have a table. In the first row is my THs. These are my table headings. And it's Maria and Oceanus. And then we have, in the next row, I have my first item for a crater, my first item for an ocean, and then my first item for a mountain. Then I end that row. Then I go to the next row, and in that row I have my next crater, my next sea or ocean, and then I have my next mountain. And then I have a final row with the same idea. And then I close that row, and then I close the table. Let's take a look at what I have here. So I'm going to go back to Chrome, it didn't save what I was looking at, so I'm going to go to Chromie, and here is the table. It isn't pretty, but it shows you how it's going to look. Interestingly enough, that those THs also centered the text. So the default browser for showing TH cells is to center the content, whereas all the TDs, you can see that they are left aligned. They're all aligned to the left. And if you wanted to get fancier, you can start adding some borders. But remember that borders and things like that are all visual noise. So we might want to instead work on spacing out the cells to make them nice and even so they make sense without having to add too many lines and things like that. So that is how you make a nested list and how you make a table. In the old days, they used to design whole web pages just based on table, but that is not semantically correct. A table means it should have tabular data, meaning there is a row with headings and there are columns that have data in them that relate to the heading in some way. We will have more topics in our next video. Can't wait.